You have cut the carbs. You started walking every day. You tried the 16-8 fasting window, gave up, then tried it again. You are eating cleaner than you did a decade ago. And still, the number on the scale refuses to move. Still, the same stubborn weight sits around your middle exactly where it was 6 months ago. Here is what nobody in the fitness industry is telling you. That is not a failure of willpower. That is biology. After 50, your body is no longer running on the same metabolic system it used in your 30s and 40s. The strategies that worked before stop working now. Not because you are doing them wrong, but because the underlying problem has changed. And the culprit is not just slower metabolism. It is something far more specific. It is insulin. Not the dramatic diabetes-level insulin problem most people imagine. A quieter, slower shift called insulin resistance, and it begins accelerating almost invisibly after 50 in nearly every woman, regardless of diet. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what is happening inside your body, why the usual advice makes it worse, not better, and 5 specific daily habits practiced in Japan for generations that work directly on this problem, starting as early as tomorrow morning. Stay until habit 4. It is the one that contradicts almost everything you have been told about exercise. And habit 5 is the one women tell me changes how their clothes fit within the first week. The real reason weight settles at the waist after 50. Here is what is actually happening. Every time you eat, your body releases insulin to move sugar from your bloodstream into your cells for energy. In your 30s, your cells respond to insulin quickly and efficiently. After 50, that response slows down. Your cells become less sensitive to insulin signal, so your body compensates by producing more of it. More circulating insulin does one thing very reliably. It tells your body to store fat, especially around the abdomen, and it tells your body to hold on to that fat rather than release it for fuel. This is why so many women over 50 describe the same experience. The weight does not increase everywhere. It concentrates at the waist, seemingly overnight, and it will not budge no matter how little they eat. This shift is well documented in research on aging and metabolic health, which consistently shows declining insulin sensitivity as one of the defining hormonal changes of this decade of life. It is not caused by eating badly. It is caused by getting older, combined with the specific habits Western daily life encourages, habits that keep insulin elevated far more often than the body was designed to tolerate. Japan has some of the lowest rates of abdominal weight gain among older adults of any developed nation. When researchers study why, they consistently point to the same 2 things: what is eaten and a small set of daily rituals that keep insulin calm. Let's go through all 5. Habit 1. Kuchi-sabashi, the end of mindless eating. There is a Japanese phrase, kuchi-sabashi, which translates roughly to lonely mouth. It describes the habit of eating not from hunger, but from boredom, stress, or simply because food is nearby. Traditional Japanese eating culture treats this as something to notice and interrupt, not indulge. Here is why this matters more after 50 than it ever did before. Every time you eat, even a small snack, insulin rises. If your cells are already less sensitive to insulin and you are eating frequently throughout the day out of habit rather than hunger, your insulin levels rarely get the chance to fully settle between meals. A body with constantly elevated insulin has no window to access stored fat for energy, because insulin's job is to store, not release. The Japanese approach is not restriction. It is a 2-second pause before eating anything outside of a planned meal. Am I actually hungry? Or is my mouth simply lonely? That single pause, practiced consistently, naturally reduces the number of insulin spikes your body experiences across the day, without a single rule about what you are allowed to eat. Habit 2. Hara Hachibu, eating to 80%. This is the habit most people have heard of, but almost nobody practices correctly. Hara Hachibu is the Okinawan principle of eating until you are roughly 80% full, then stopping, even with food remaining on the plate. The mechanism after 50 is specific. It takes your brain roughly 20 minutes to register fullness signals from your stomach. Eating quickly or eating until a plate is completely empty means you consistently overshoot that signal. And overshooting it means one thing metabolically: a larger, sharper insulin spike than your body actually needed to process that meal. Practiced daily, that repeated overshoot is one of the quiet contributors to the insulin resistance that accelerates after 50. Hara Hachibu is not about eating less overall. It is about eating slower and stopping at the first sign of satisfaction rather than the last. In practice, this means putting the utensil down between bites and giving each meal at least 15 minutes before deciding whether you actually want more. Nothing is forbidden. The pace is the entire practice. Habit 3. Kuwa no Junban, the order you eat in. This is the habit almost no one outside Japan has ever heard of, and it may be the single most powerful item on this list. Kuwa no Junban refers to eating food in a specific sequence: vegetables and fiber first, protein second, rice or starches last. Here is the science behind why sequence matters as much as content. When carbohydrates are eaten first on an empty stomach, they are absorbed quickly and blood sugar rises sharply, which forces a large, rapid insulin release to bring it back down. When fiber and protein are eaten first, they slow the rate at which the carbohydrates that follow are absorbed. The same meal, in a different order, produces a significantly gentler blood sugar curve and a smaller corresponding insulin spike. Multiple studies on meal sequencing have found that eating carbohydrates last, after vegetables and protein, meaningfully reduces the after-meal insulin and glucose response, even when the total calories and macronutrients are identical. After 50, with cells already less responsive to insulin, this difference compounds meal after meal, day after day. You do not need to change what is on your plate. You only need to change the order you pick it up in. Vegetables first, protein second, rice, bread, or noodles last. That is the entire habit. Habit 4. Ragio Taiso instead of intense morning workouts. And here is the one that goes against everything you have likely been told about fighting midlife weight gain. Stop doing intense, high heart rate exercise first thing in the morning. Not forever, not completely, specifically not in the first hour after waking. Here is why this matters after 50 in a way it did not before. Fasted, high-intensity exercise raises cortisol, and elevated cortisol interferes with insulin sensitivity, temporarily making your cells even less responsive to insulin than they already are. In your 30s, your hormonal system buffered this easily. After 50, with that buffering system already diminished, an intense fasted workout can leave insulin sensitivity worse, not better, for several hours afterward. The Japanese alternative, practiced by millions daily, is Ragio Taiso, radio calisthenics, a gentle, structured sequence of stretching and light movement, roughly 10 minutes, broadcast on the radio each morning since the 1920s, and still performed today in schools, offices, and parks across the country. It is not designed to burn calories. It is designed to activate the muscles gently, improve circulation, and wake the joints without triggering a stress response. Light movement like this actually improves insulin sensitivity by encouraging muscles to take up glucose without the cortisol spike that intense exercise produces on an empty stomach. Save the harder training for later in the day, after you have eaten, when your body can use that intensity productively instead of defensively. 10 minutes of gentle stretching in the morning. Save the intensity for the afternoon. The sequence is the strategy. Habit 5. Bancha and the evening wind down. The 5th habit is the one women tell me changes things fastest, and it happens at the opposite end of the day. In many Japanese households, the evening includes a specific ritual. A cup of roasted green tea, bancha or hochicha, consumed slowly, without a phone, in the 30 minutes before the final meal of the day is finished. 2 things are happening here. First, roasted green tea is naturally lower in caffeine than standard green tea and contains compounds shown to support healthy blood sugar response after meals. Drinking it before your evening meal, rather than after, appears to gently blunt the glucose and insulin spike that a later, often carbohydrate-heavy dinner produces, the exact meal most Western households treat as their biggest of the day. Second, and just as important, is what is absent from this ritual: screens, notifications, scrolling. Evening screen exposure delays melatonin release and keeps cortisol elevated later into the night than it should be. Poor, fragmented sleep is directly linked to worse insulin sensitivity the following day, which means a stressful, screen-lit evening does not just cost you rest, it costs you tomorrow's metabolic stability before tomorrow has even started. The habit is simple. In the 30 minutes before your last meal, put the phone away and drink something warm and unsweetened, slowly. That alone recalibrates 2 systems, digestion and sleep, that are working against you if left on autopilot. All 5 in order. 5 habits, all free. None of them require a gym membership, a supplement cabinet, or a stricter version of yourself. Pause before eating out of boredom. Eat until 80% full, slowly. Eat vegetables and protein before carbohydrates. Move gently in the morning, train harder in the afternoon. Wind the evening down with something warm and your phone out of reach. The weight that has settled at your waist after 50 was not placed there by laziness. It was placed there by a hormonal shift nobody clearly explained to you. One that no amount of white-knuckle discipline was ever designed to fix. Japan has understood this for generations, not through modern science's vocabulary, but through daily ritual, repeated without drama for a lifetime. Before you go, one question. Of these 5 habits, which one do you already suspect is the piece you have been missing? Not the one that surprised you, the one that somewhere you already knew was true. Leave it in the comments. And if this helped you understand what has actually been happening in your body, send it to one woman in your life who has been blaming herself for something that was never about discipline in the first place. She deserves to hear the real explanation. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next one.